Okay, so picture this. You need like a killer app coded right. But instead of like wrestling with lines of code for like weeks, you just tell your computer what to do and bam, instant software. That's the type of crazy disruption we're seeing with AI right now. And let me tell you, it's just the tip of the iceberg, really. In this deep dive, we're going to strap on our scuba gear and plunge headfirst into, well, your source material, right? An article by Divyan Gupta aptly titled The AI Age of Disruption. We're going to be talking about AI's shakeup of the job market, how governments might react to all this, and the skills you, our listener, will need to not just survive but thrive in this whole new world. Gupta doesn't waste any time jumping right into the breakneck speed of AI development. I mean, we all see the headlines, right? But this article, it really drives home just how AI is already changing the game. Not in some distant future, but right now. Take software development, for example. Tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Cursor, Copilot. They're not just fancy names to impress your techie friends anymore, okay? They're already changing how software is made. And it's not just code either. This stuff is writing movie scripts, legal documents, even composing music. And here's a real kicker. The article mentions AI writing its own code using something called voice-to-development tools. So you basically, talk to the computer and tell it to build you a program. That's wild. To help unpack this, I'd love to get your take on this, expert. What does this mean for the future of programming? Does everyone need to become an AI whisperer, or is there still room for traditional coding skills?
Well, what's fascinating here is how AI is kind of pushing the boundaries of what we thought was even possible. It's like having a conversation with your computer, telling it what you want, and it just does it. But instead of thinking of it as like a threat, right? Imagine AI as this turbocharged assistant. Think about it like this: autopilot, right? Revolutionized flying, right? Planes can practically fly themselves now, but we still have pilots. In fact, their roles are even more crucial now, overseeing the system, making those critical decisions, and handling all those unexpected situations that AI just isn't equipped for.
So instead of being replaced, we're shifting into this collaborative space with AI. I like the sound of that.
Exactly. The article calls this the rise of hybrid skills. It's no longer just about what you can do, but how well you can work alongside AI. And that leads to a really important point the article raises: this growing need for specialists.
Okay, yeah, let's break that down a bit. Specialist versus generalist. What's the takeaway for our listener? Someone who's just tuning in, maybe for the first time.
Imagine this. You ask an AI to draft, let's say, a contract. It can probably spit out a basic template in seconds, right? But without a lawyer, someone who understands the finer points of contract law, you could be signing your life away. That's where specialists come in. AI can handle those broad strokes, but it's the nuances, that deep understanding of a specific field, where humans will continue to add, well, unique value.
So you're saying that instead of being a jack of all trades, we need to become masters of one, especially when it comes to guiding and maybe even correcting AI. I
Yeah,
feel like that applies to so many fields, not just programming or a law.
absolutely. Think about AI-generated news articles, right?
Yeah.
They might be grammatically perfect and filled with, tons of facts, but they could still lack the critical context and nuanced understanding that a human journalist brings to the table. AI excels at tasks that are very clearly defined. But when it comes to subjective judgment, ethical considerations, or those, aha moments of insight, that's where human expertise is irreplaceable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this isn't just some tech world issue either, right? The article talks about governments starting to sweat a bit about the potential job losses from all this. They even mention this HELI scheme. What is that? Some kind of high-tech helicopter for unemployed office workers?
Not quite. HELI stands for Human Employee Linked Incentive. It's this radical idea being tossed around about how governments might be able to handle the inevitable job displacement from AI. The article kind of paints this picture of a future where losing your job to AI isn't a dead end, but like a chance to upskill and reinvent yourself with financial support from the government.
Wait, so you're telling me the government might actually support people financially while they retrain for new careers? That's surprisingly progressive. How would something like that even work in the real world?
It's definitely an ambitious concept. The article highlights that there's no one-size-fits-all answer. But the very fact that governments are exploring these ideas shows they're waking up to the potential scale of AI's impact. The big question is, how do you actually implement something like HELI fairly and effectively, without breaking the bank?
And can they even act quickly enough to help those who are already being impacted by AI-driven job losses? Or is it a case of too little, too late? This is definitely a topic I want to explore further.
It's a conversation we need to be having now, because As the article states, the AI revolution is already upon us.
All right, listeners, buckle up because it's about to get real. We're about to dive deep into the potential impact of HELI, the ethical tightrope walk of AI in warfare, and most importantly, what all of this means for you. Don't touch that dial. So we've established that this AI revolution is already changing everything, right? I mean, from how we code software to how governments plan for the future.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
But what about the ethical considerations here? Like, what happens when AI starts making decisions that have, real-world consequences,
Right.
especially in sensitive areas like warfare? The article touches on this, and it's, well, kind of unsettling to think about.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most ethically challenging aspects of AI, for sure. Imagine a swarm of AI-controlled drones, right? And they're like making strategic decisions on a battlefield, potentially, deciding who lives and who dies. It's a lot. The article briefly mentions these AI-driven strategies, and it raises a really critical question. If an AI system makes a mistake, who is accountable, right? Is it the programmer?
Yeah.
The military commander? These are questions we don't really have easy answers to yet.
Yeah, it's like that classic thought experiment with the self-driving car, right? If there's an accident, who's at fault? The car, the programmer, or the passenger who was supposed to be paying attention. Except in this case, the stakes are, well, infinitely higher.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just warfare. As AI becomes, more integrated into our lives, we need to really grapple with the potential consequences of its decisions. Whether it's an algorithm determining who gets a loan or even an AI-powered medical device making a life or death call, it's a big deal.
It's almost like AI is forcing us to confront some really deep philosophical questions about free will, responsibility, even what it means to be human.
It's true. And the article doesn't shy away from these complex issues at all. It emphasizes that we can't just focus on all the exciting possibilities of AI without also addressing the potential downsides as well.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a tightrope walk, isn't it? We need to embrace AI's potential while also establishing clear ethical guidelines and safeguards to ensure, that it's used responsibly.
Precisely. It's not about fearing AI. It's about respecting its power and making sure it's always aligned with our values as humans.
And that brings us back to something you mentioned earlier, communication. If
Yeah.
we're going to be working alongside AI, guiding its development, trusting it with these increasingly complex tasks, we need to be able to communicate with it, effectively.
Absolutely. That ability to clearly articulate, our instructions, our expectations to these AI systems, it's going to be paramount. This goes beyond just, learning a new programming language, right? It's about understanding how AI thinks.
Yeah.
How to frame problems in a way that it can comprehend, how to provide feedback that helps it learn and improve.
So it's almost like we need to become AI whisperers, learning to speak its language, understand its nuances.
I like that analogy because it emphasizes the importance of collaboration and mutual understanding, right? We can't just treat AI as a tool to be, exploited. We need to engage with it as a partner, recognizing both its strengths but also its limitations.
That's a great point. And it speaks to the need for ongoing dialogue and collaboration between AI developers, policymakers, and the public, too. We need to be having open and honest conversations about the potential impact of AI, the good and the bad, so that we can, shape a future where this technology benefits all of humanity, not just a select few.
I completely agree. It's a collective responsibility, and it starts with education, awareness, and a willingness to engage with these complex issues head on.
Okay, so let's maybe shift gears for a moment and talk about some of the more, tangible ways that governments are trying to address the potential challenges posed by AI, specifically this idea of a HELI scheme. I think it's worth unpacking that a bit further for our listeners who might not be, familiar with the concept.
You're right. HELI, which stands for Human Employee Linked Incentive, is a pretty radical concept. Essentially, it's a proposed framework for providing financial support and retraining opportunities to workers who lose their jobs due to automation.
So instead of just handing out unemployment checks, the government would actively invest in helping people, adapt to the changing job market.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that AI will inevitably displace some jobs. But instead of leaving those workers behind, we can provide them with the resources they need to thrive in a future driven by technology.
That sounds great in theory, but how would it work in practice? The article mentions that governments are still grappling with the logistics of implementing something like HELI, especially when it comes to funding.
Right. One of the biggest questions is, where does the money come from? The article touches on a couple of potential avenues, and they're both pretty interesting.
Lay it on us. What are some of the options being considered?
Well, one idea is to tax the companies that are, profiting the most from AI. The thinking is that if businesses are using AI to automate tasks and increase their bottom line, they should also contribute to supporting the workers who were displaced as a result.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like a social responsibility tax, ensuring that the benefits of AI are, shared more equitably.
Exactly. And it highlights this idea that, technological advancement shouldn't come at the expense of social well-being.
Okay, so taxing AI companies is one option. What else is on the table?
Another possibility is to redirect funds from existing government programs that might become, less relevant as AI reshapes the employment landscape.
So, for example, if fewer people need unemployment benefits because AI is creating new job opportunities, those funds could be reallocated to support HELI initiatives.
Precisely. Or if AI leads to significant cost savings in, let's say, healthcare or education, some of those resources could be funneled into retraining programs for workers in those fields.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily about creating entirely new funding streams, but rather about being, strategic and forward-thinking with existing resources.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about recognizing that the rise of AI presents both challenges and opportunities, and,
Yeah.
and we need to be proactive in adapting our policies and priorities to reflect this new reality.
This HELI concept is certainly thought-provoking, and it'll be interesting to see how these discussions kind of, evolve in the coming years. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I kind of want to circle back to the article's closing message.
Sounds good to me. What are your thoughts?
Well, the article ends on a note of urgency. It's emphasizing that the time to prepare for the AI age is now. But I think it also conveys a sense of optimism. Like we have the power to shape this future rather than simply reacting to it.
I agree. It's not about fearing the unknown, but about embracing the possibilities and taking proactive steps to ensure that AI enhances our lives in meaningful and ethical ways.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But I am curious, based on everything we've discussed today, what would you say is the single most important piece of advice for our listeners who, they want to thrive in this AI-driven future? What's the one thing they can take away from all this?
If I had to choose just one, it would be this. Cultivate a mindset of continuous learning. Always be learning.
Okay, tell me more about that. What does that look like in practice? Give us the actionable steps.
It means staying curious, embracing new technologies and constantly seeking out opportunities to expand your skills, your knowledge. The world is changing at an unprecedented pace, and the ability to adapt, to learn new things, that's going to be paramount.
So don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, experiment with new tools, and never stop learning. Like, ever.
Exactly. The more you embrace a growth mindset, the more prepared you'll be to navigate the exciting and sometimes unpredictable landscape of the AI age.
It's funny. We started this deep dive talking about like AI writing code, right? And whipping up legal documents in seconds. And now here we are pondering the future of work, the ethics of like autonomous weapons, and even, I don't know, the very essence of what it means to be human. It's a lot to process, honestly.
It really is. And this article, it isn't just some like glimpse into the future of technology, right? It's a reflection on our own humanity, I think, in the face of all this incredible change that's happening all around us.
And that's what makes it so compelling, right? But for our listeners who might be feeling a little, I don't know, overwhelmed right now, and let's be real, it's easy to feel overwhelmed with all this stuff. What's the one thing they can do, like today, right now, to feel maybe a little more prepared for this AI-powered future? What's the one thing they should take away from all this?
We've talked a lot about specific skills today, right? Like mastering communication, becoming specialists in our fields, embracing this idea of continuous learning. But if I had to distill it down to one essential piece of advice, it would be this. Don't underestimate your own humanness. What makes you you?
Okay, I love that. But unpack that a little bit for me. What do you really mean by don't underestimate your own humanness?
AI is incredible, right? It's incredible at mimicking human intelligence, for sure.
Yeah.
But it still lacks those things that make us truly human, things like empathy, creativity, critical thinking, our ability to connect with each other on a deeper level. These are the qualities that will become even more valuable in an AI-driven world.
So it's not just about like competing with AI, but about really focusing on what makes us uniquely human.
Exactly. AI might be able to analyze mountains of data in a heartbeat, right? but it can't replicate the nuanced understanding, the emotional intelligence, that spark of creative genius that comes from, well, from the human experience.
This reminds me of something you said earlier about the importance of like specialists.
Yeah.
It's almost like by like diving deep into our own passions and expertise, we're not just becoming, you know, better at what we do, we're actually becoming more human.
I think you're really onto something there. In a world increasingly, you know, dominated by automation, it's our human qualities, our empathy, our creativity, our ability to connect with one another. Those are the things that will really set us apart, not just as workers, but as individuals.
That's a really powerful message. And I think it's a great note to end on. Don't just fear the robot uprising, embrace your humanness. So to wrap things up, if you, our amazing listener, want to dive deeper into this wild world of AI disruption, be sure to check out the full article, The AI Age of Disruption by Divyan Gupta. It's a real eye-opener, trust me. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and keep those human sparks flying.